Cool, thank you, Karen. So I'm Nikki, I'm Project Coordinator and Energy Advisor at PECT. And then today we also have Karen, who's our Health and Wellbeing Lead. And we also have Becky Presland from Peterborough City Council, who's going to be doing a talk all on sustainable and active travel. There's someone else in the thing. So we'll be discussing travel today. So hopefully it will make you feel a bit more empowered to choose sustainable travel options. And then after this webinar, we'll also be sending out a toolkit that'll have a lot of hopefully helpful resources and links if you want to learn a bit more about anything mentioned today. And there'll also be some information about some one-to-ones. So if there was anything you wanted specific advice or ideas around, you can organise a one-to-one with someone at PECT, and we'll see how we can help you sort of reduce your environmental impact in certain areas of your life. Okay, so before we sort of get into the main part of the webinar, we just wanted to quickly touch on calculating your carbon footprint. So if you were on the webinar yesterday, sorry, you might have to listen to this all over again. But yeah, so calculating your carbon footprint is just quite a helpful tool just to give you a bit of an idea around the impact you have as like an individual or as a household. And there are loads of calculators online that you can use to calculate that, and they just basically ask you a series of questions about your lifestyle and your household, and it will give you an estimate of sort of what your impact is. So we recommend Geeky quite a lot because it's quite like user-friendly and interactive, and they have loads of different tips on how you can improve your carbon footprint. However, I guess the big thing around it is to not let it make you feel bad or guilty about what you're doing. Obviously, there's some aspects of our lives that you can't avoid, so that is going to be included in that. But hopefully, if you did look at calculating your carbon footprint, it would just give you an idea of maybe areas you could improve on. Yeah, so that's just a quick overview of carbon footprinting, just in case anyone did want to look into doing that, and if maybe you did want to book in for the one-to-one, it'd be quite helpful to have that information as well. So before we get into Becky's talk, we just wanted to ask everybody a quick question on what is your main mode of transport. So if you just want to put it in the chat box. I was going to do a poll, but I didn't have time to put that in, because it'd just be interesting to see sort of the audience we have. Maybe you drive a lot, or you're already quite sustainable and cycle everywhere. And I can't see the chat box.
So Alison, Alex and myself are all drivers, so, and Tim. So probably we need your advice, Becky. And yes. Devon's really good and uses public transport, either the tube or the bus.
Oh, amazing. That's good. Yeah, I drive a lot as well, so I need to know what to do. Cool, so it's like perfect audience then for what Becky's going to be talking about. So I will hand straight over to Becky. And yeah, just let me know when you want me to move the slides on.
Great, thank you. And thank you for inviting me along today to talk to you guys about sustainable and active travel. So I work at Peterborough City Council. I lead on the sustainable travel stuff. So if there's any questions or you need some further information, please do contact me. My details are at the beginning and the end of these slides. So yeah, I just wanted to put this first slide in with this picture because I think it's quite powerful, really. A lot of us all go to the gym and we sit on the exercise bikes and pedal away, when actually we could be doing that as part of our day-to-day journeys to work, or taking the children to school, or, you know, popping to the shops. And I think sometimes it's a little bit overlooked. So yeah, I thought that was quite a powerful little image there. So yeah, let's begin. Next slide, please. Okay, so there are loads and loads of reasons why people don't choose to travel sustainably and actively. I just wanted to highlight a few of the kind of headlines then, I guess, as to why, you know, people may choose to travel sustainably. You know, physical inactivity is quite an issue. 1 in 6 deaths in the UK can be attributed to inactivity. And we're all spending more and more time sitting at home, working behind a computer screen. 40% of women, 35% of men spend more than 6 hours a day. And I know some days I'm one of those people that definitely does do that. We are far less active than we used to be. And if the trend continues, we're going to be at least 35% less active than we were back in 1961. So that's quite a lot. And physical inactivity is costing Peterborough Clinical Commissioning Group millions of pounds a year. In 2013, it was 2.7 million. So something that, you know, just by increasing our exercise has huge benefits to, you know, the economic stability then of our health service, not just in Peterborough, but throughout the UK. I thought this was actually quite incredible. 65.5% of the Peterborough population are overweight or obese. Again, I'm one of those. But, you know, that's quite a stark statistic. You know, over half the population, nearly 3/4 then, are overweight or obese. Also, you know, fuel bills are rising at an incredible rate. I think it's nearly £2 a litre now for petrol or diesel. You know, so sustainable travel can save you an awful lot of money. We use more petrol and diesel making short journeys in our cars and motorbikes. So yeah, it's definitely something to consider as the cost of living is ever increasing. Also, you know, we have a huge important role to play with tackling climate change. Peterborough has declared a climate emergency, as have a lot of cities across the world then. So it's definitely something that we can easily incorporate into our day-to-day activities by travelling to work more sustainably, and the carbon savings are incredibly high. And also it improve your well-being. Health and well-being, you know, are really, really important. By partaking in physical activity, we release endorphins, the happy hormones, so to speak. So, you know, it does actually de-stress us, it makes us happier, and, you know, it's good for your body, your mind, and the environment. I've just put a little quote in there that the last couple of months have really, really shown us, and I think we can all agree, just how important it is not to just take care of ourselves physically, but mentally also, and how precious our planet really is, and these small things that we can do in which to protect it. Next slide, please. Okay, so I've just put a few ideas together as to why people aren't choosing to travel in an active and sustainable way. There are loads and loads of barriers out there, and I welcome anyone to just pop in the chat any barriers that they face, which is preventing them from traveling in a more sustainable way. I think these 1, 2, 3, 6 highlight the main concerns then from previous studies. I just wanted to look at them a little bit closely and try to kind of answer those queries then. So, you know, obviously we have issues with road safety, but in actual fact, it's highly unlikely that you are going to be involved in a traffic collision when you're on a bicycle or a pedestrian. It also lowers the risk of death through the increased benefits of activity. And also people traveling by car or even on the bus, and the bus is, you know, a good sustainable way to travel around for those longer distances, but you're actually breathing in more pollutants when you're sat in a car than you would be if you were outside, even cycling along a main road. If you think you're stuck in a car with the window shut or whatever, those pollutants have nowhere to go. They are coming into your car and they've got nowhere to go. So convenience and time, and this one always baffles me really, because cars are always portrayed as the most convenient choice, the quickest choice. But actually, you know, it has been proven, and I can prove it myself. I cycle to San Martin House from Woodston. It takes me about 7 minutes. But it takes me probably about 20 minutes if I go in the car by the time I've looked for a parking space and got stuck in traffic on Town Bridge, for example. So, you know, and I think drivers hugely underestimate the amount of time it does actually take them to get in and out of their cars. I also noticed this on the school run. You know, we have parents that drop their children at a local school, and the amount of time it actually takes them to bundle the children into the car, get them in their car seats, seatbelts on, etc., then to wrestle for a parking space near the school, sorry, and then get them all out and then get back in the car and then turn around and wrestle in the traffic again. It's just so much quicker to walk or cycle or scoot or skip or run or do whatever you like. But yeah, so, you know, that's often the biggest concern is people say, I haven't got time, but actually, you know, there is time. Lack of infrastructure. This is an interesting one, and I fully agree with a lot of people that say, you know, the cycle paths aren't great, there aren't any segregated cycle lanes, I don't feel safe, you know, cycling on the road, and I completely sympathise. But in Peterborough, we are really lucky. We have the Peterborough Green Wheel, which is a network of around approximately 45 miles of cycleways in and around the city. They're predominantly traffic free, off-road or on urban, quiet cycle lanes. So, you know, they are suitable in the most part for cyclists of all abilities and pedestrians. Also, the government have made huge shifts in their pledges to provide funding for greater infrastructure for pedestrians and cyclists. And I think, you know, as cycling levels increase, then so will investment. So if we can get more people out walking and cycling in the city, then greater investment will come so that we can then provide that better infrastructure in order to facilitate better cycling and walking routes in the future. Lack of confidence. This is another one. I fully appreciate that people are nervous about cycling on roads. But, you know, there are various schemes out there, one of which Peterborough City Council do offer to all adults over 18. This is complementary to the stuff that we do in schools with younger people, where everybody is entitled to have a one-on-one cycle training refresher course or lesson, you know, whether you're a complete novice or you're just someone that wants to up your skills. That is something that we can provide for you know, all residents. So please do get in touch if that's something you would be interested in. No bicycle. Obviously, it's quite difficult to cycle if you haven't got a bike. Most employers do offer the Cycle to Work scheme, so ask your employers if that is something you would be interested in. It's great. It's a great scheme. You can basically buy a bike and all the accessories, a lock, helmet, etc., and then they will deduct the cost then from your earnings each month, and it's before tax, so actually you end up paying quite a bit less tax. So you save on average about 32% on the cost of, you know, a really nice new bike. Also, we have obviously got the Voi e-bikes in Peterborough. I don't know if you guys have seen them, the orange bikes that are dotted here, there and everywhere. They are, you know, everyone can use them over the age of 18. You just need a provisional driver's license or some form of ID in which to be able to access those bicycles. Prices start, I think they're about £1 to unlock the bike, and then it's 15 pence per minute. However, they do discounted daily rates, monthly rates, or a 300-minute hire then, I guess. But again, if that's something that you would like to try and you would like a discounted complimentary rate just to give them a go, please let us know. And the weather, this one's a good one. Everybody thinks it rains all the time in the UK, but actually it doesn't really rain that much. The data shows that there's on average about 106 days of rainfall per year. This isn't where you get up in the morning and it's raining and you go to bed at night and it's raining. We often have the odd light shower, but, you know, 71% of the year on average is a dry day. So yeah, the weather is always a good one. And to be fair, we don't get really bad rain or hail or snow in Peterborough anyway. It's quite a mild climate. and you know it's more than suitable for cycling on most days. So yeah, if you guys can think of any others, please let me know. I see that Karen is not too keen on the wind. Yeah, that can be a bit of a problem, especially as we're so flat here. So yeah, we do suffer with the wind.
I think Becky, Alison has said that there's no shower at work, and Devin has said they did a travel survey at work, and this like correlates with what they found as well.
Oh, that's great. To go back to, did you say it was Alison? No shower at work. Yeah. Alison, I would speak to your HR department or someone with facilities or something, get them to get in touch with us, because we could potentially offer a 50% match funding in order to install showers to facilitate sustainable travellers. So yeah, that's something that we could possibly help out with if they've got the space and, you know, to be able to install something like that. But I fully appreciate, yeah, no one wants to get to work either wet or hot and sweaty and not have somewhere where they can freshen up. So yeah, that is definitely something that you could discuss with your employer. Yeah, next slide, please. Okay, so commuting by bicycle. Census data from 2011. I appreciate it's a little bit out of date now, but it did show that 18% of Peterborough residents live within 2 kilometres of their workplace. That's approximately an 8 to 10 minute cycle at an average pace. 63% of Peterborough residents live within 5 kilometres of their workplace. So that's a 15, 20 minute cycle. So yeah, again, you know, that's less time than sometimes it takes to get the car out of the garage and warmed up and down the road. So, you know, the perception is that it takes a lot longer to cycle, but it actually doesn't. And these distances are more than achievable by most of us. Added benefits of cycling to work, pretty obvious to be fair, but you know, there's no parking struggles, no one racing to try and find the nearest parking space to the main entrance, no parking charges, which are extortionate, especially if you work in the city centre, no fuel costs. We've touched on that already. You know, the price of fuel seems to be going up and up. Of course, there's the massive benefit of increased fitness. You don't have to finish your day at work after being sat down all day and think, oh, I've really got to go to the gym now, I've been so lazy, because you're going to be getting that 20, 30-minute exercise in a day by walking or cycling to your place of work. Brain power as well. And this is an interesting one, and I'm sure a lot of employers will be trying to encourage their staff to walk or cycle or travel actively in future, because research has shown that actually people are more alert. It can prevent cognitive decline. It sharpens your memory and learning. So therefore, you know, it equates to less sick days as well for employers. People tend to be a lot healthier and have fewer sick days if they travel sustainably to work. And of course, no traffic jams. We've all been there, nose to nose traffic, waiting around for like 15, 20 minutes at traffic lights, getting more and more frustrated, thinking I'm going to be late to work. If you're on a bike or on your feet, you can just whiz by all of those cars. And I actually find a bit of sense of satisfaction as I'm cycling by all these people stuck in traffic with horns beeping and stuff. So yeah, I've touched already on the 50% match funding grant that is available to businesses to help kind of install anything to do with sustainable travel infrastructure. So that could be anything from showers, as previously mentioned, to electric vehicle charging points, bike racks, lockers. You know, there's a whole host of things that money can go towards, and that is available up to £10,000. So it is quite a good scheme that I think not a lot of people know about, actually. So yeah, and I've just put a link there, and I'm sure Pecht will share the slides with you guys, which just gives you a bit more information on the Voi bikes and how you go about downloading them and stuff. So yeah, next slide, please. Okay, walking and cycling to school. Now, we all know parents are really busy. They've sometimes got children at 2 different schools. They're heading out to go to work, and there just really isn't time. But actually, you know, nearly a third of children in the UK are obese. 22% of 5-year-olds have an unhealthy weight, and that rises to over 37% in 11-year-old plus. You know, that is crazy. Also, 1 in 3 cars during the morning peak are parents taking their children to school, or grandparents taking their children to school. You know, 70% of children used to walk to school back in my parents' generation. Now that's around 46%. And I fully appreciate that secondary school is a bit difficult, because obviously the catchment areas are much wider. There probably isn't necessarily the ability to be able to walk and cycle as much, because children are travelling further for school. But in Peterborough, our catchment areas for primary schools are relatively good. I think 70% live within a reasonable walking, scooting, cycling, skipping distance of their primary school. So, you know, that's definitely something to think about. And in Peterborough, you may or may not be aware, but we have introduced some school street schemes outside of schools during morning drop-off and pick-up. And that's basically where we close the road for an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon to all school-run traffic. This allows a safe, you know, car-free zone then outside of the school gates. It negates, you know, issues of air quality from idling vehicles. It prevents congestion. It increases safety, you know. And I've included a couple of pictures there, and the first one is outside Queen's Drive Infants on Queen's Drive West. This first picture was taken before we did a school street scheme there, and as you can see, it just looks like a car park. It was noisy, it was smelly, you know, it was very, very dangerous. The second picture, unfortunately, I didn't have an after picture of Queen's Drive Infants. I don't know why I didn't take one. But this is outside St Michael's Church in Cardia, Stanground South, where we've introduced a school street scheme. And pretty much outside of the school was the same as the first picture, but this is what it's like now. Now we've introduced this no car zone then during school drop off and pick up. And I think you'll agree, I would much rather be in the second picture taking my child to that school than I would to the first one. Also, you know, walking and cycling, it has huge impacts on children's health. It helps maintain weight, but also it's really great. It's a really great time for parents, grandparents to actually engage with their children about the day ahead or what's been happening during the day. You know, children arrive at school much more alert and awake. You know, and it's one of the healthiest and most enjoyable ways for children to get active and for parents to get active with their children. So yeah, so there's many, you know, reasons why, if we can, we should try to walk or cycle or scoot our children to school. You know, there's so many benefits, and I would urge you all to just give it a try, even if it means leaving 5 or 10 minutes earlier. You know, it'll be great for you guys and for your children. Yeah, can I, next slide, please? Okay, so I've just included a couple of images here and some information about, you know, what walking 20 minutes actually does to your body and the benefits of regular cycling. I think, you know, they're all pretty obvious, I guess. But, you know, I just wanted to show you guys some of the key benefits then, that, you know, just walking 20 minutes every day, which doesn't seem very much at all, but look at all of the amazing benefits that it can have. You know, it halves the risk of Alzheimer's over 5 years. You know, it improves your heart health. It reduces glaucoma, which is something I would have never attributed to walking or physical activity. You know, it strengthens your legs, your hips, your back. It eases stress. I think, you know, stress is a major concern for a lot of us, and just having that 20-minute walk into work in the morning or just to the local shop to pick up a pint of milk, it really clears your mind and it helps you focus and think. And again, you know, the benefits of cycling pretty much the same as the benefits of walking. You know, they are ideal options to stay healthy. Incorporate something into your day-to-day normal lives. Doesn't take any extra effort, really. It reduces your impact on the planet, and people of all ages, all abilities can benefit from low impact forms of transport such as walking and cycling. So yeah, next slide, please. Okay, air quality, and I thought this photo was actually quite shocking. I wouldn't want to be the mother pushing my baby in that pram next to that car exhaust. But this is what's happening outside of schools and on high streets and, you know, local roads day in, day out. You know, it's shocking. Yeah, 21% of UK domestic greenhouse gas emissions come from transport. So that's one fifth over of all domestic greenhouse gas emissions are from transport. Children, as we've said, you know, they are the most vulnerable. Their lungs are developing all the time until adolescence, but we are all still affected. Cases of asthma and respiratory illness are on the rise. You know, it's got to be a major factor that transport is causing these horrible effects. I've already stated that sitting in a car is more dangerous than being outside, you know, where there's lots of fresh air and exhaust fumes, etc., are kind of dispersed over a larger area. Air pollution kills 25,000 people every year in England. That's 25,000 people that potentially are dying unnecessarily. 2/3 of all UK car journeys are under 5 miles. You know, 5 miles, you can cycle that in less than half an hour. Air pollution makes climate change worse. We all know this, as well as the fine particulate air pollution directly affecting the climate. Many of the causes of air pollution, such as traffic, are contributors to climate change. We all need to act on climate change. Again, active, sustainable travel is something we can all do in order to, you know, help the climate from changing. Then we need to stop this and we need to make these changes now. Air pollution per fossil fuel car costs £121 per car, the effects of air pollution. So you times that by however million cars there are in the UK, you know, we need to all now kind of look at doing things differently and be part of the solution and not part of the pollution. Quite liked that little that little quote there. Next slide, please. So it brings us on to carbon savings. We all want to reduce our carbon impact. Swapping the car for walking, cycling, e-biking, or even the bus just one day a week can make a huge impact on your personal carbon footprint. A bicycle produces 21 grams of carbon emissions per kilometre, which I thought was actually quite high, but I guess it's through the manufacturing of that bicycle and then any additional parts that you may need later on. But a car produces over 10 times that amount, 271 grams per kilometre. So you think how many kilometres you drive in a week. That's a lot of carbon. Walking obviously produces none at all. 37% of transport-related emissions come from the journey to work, which is why I would just urge everyone to just try, especially with such nice weather that we're having, just try commuting via walking or cycling just one day a week, 2 days a week, just try. You know, to meet our greenhouse gas emission reduction targets, we do require a significant move away from motorised transport. We need to be looking at alternative options and better ways of doing things, not just for ourselves, but for the planet as well. Sorry, that's the door. Apologies, sorry, that's the door. Shifting to active transport for short journeys could save as much as a quarter of personal carbon dioxide emissions from transport. Sorry, I've just got to go and tell my...
Working from home for you, everybody. The unexpected knock on the door, the cat walking across the screen.
So sorry, guys. I'm so sorry.
Not a problem, Becky.
Sorry. Okay. I knew I should have gone in the office today. So yeah. So we need a shift away from motorised transport. Cycling just 10 kilometres to work has been estimated to have the potential to save 1,500 kilograms of greenhouse gas emissions each year. So if you think that's 5 kilometres there, 5 kilometres back each day for 5 days a week, 1,500 kilograms of greenhouse gas emissions. That's huge. That is really huge, and that's just for one person. You can save as much as a quarter of your own personal carbon dioxide emissions just by switching your transport choice for those short journeys that we all make day in, day out. So yeah, there's a nice little link there where you can do a quick estimate. You can put in like the make and size of your car and the length of your average kind of journey to work or to school, and it gives you quite a nice little quick, easy calculation of how you can save your carbon emissions and, you know, reduce your carbon footprint just by changing those short, quick journeys. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so this takes us to my penultimate slide, I think. Electric vehicles, you know, it's understandable. Not all journeys can be transferred to walking and cycling, public transport. You know, we do have to make those longer journeys. Sometimes we need to go shopping and it won't all fit on a pannier bag on a bike. So that's where the role of EVs come into play. You know, EVs have seen an exponential increase in numbers over recent years, and this is just growing and growing and growing. Research has shown that EVs are far better for the environment. They emit far fewer greenhouse gases and air pollutants, particulate matter, than petrol or diesel cars. And this even does take into account the production, you know, carbon emissions from, you know, the creation of the cars, the batteries, etc. I think that's often a common argument that EVs aren't great because they use so much energy in which to produce them, but actually, you know, technology is advancing. The energy usage now is far less. The batteries last far longer. And they do emit almost 3 times less CO2 than the equivalent petrol or diesel car. They are quite expensive, but there are tax incentives and grants available. I've put a link there on the slide if people want to find out a bit more about how they can cover the cost of even the installation of the EV charging infrastructure at their own home. Also, you know, Peterborough City Council have installed 17 public EV charging spaces, and there are 4 now, rapid ones for sole use by the taxi trade. And, you know, there are loads and loads. I've lost count of how many additional charging facilities there are in privately owned shopping centres and leisure centres, etc. So there's plenty of places in which to charge your electric vehicle if you were to get one. So yeah, so that's kind of where I am. If we can go to just the last slide, please. So yeah, just if you want any further information or want to discuss anything, then please do get in contact with me, whether you're a business and individual or you want to try something out, then we'd be more than happy to help you as much as we can. And I think, you know, the last picture, I think, says it all. You know, big sweeping life changes really boil down to small everyday decisions. These decisions we are making daily as to how we travel. And just by changing just 1 or 2 of those short journeys, we can really have such huge impact on our carbon emissions and our carbon footprint, and, you know, make a change for the better, not just for our health, but for the environment too. So thank you. Apologies for the little interruption there midway.
Thanks, Becky. That was really interesting. Yeah, I'm definitely one of those people that thinks I don't have enough time to cycle. So you've put that into perspective for me that I probably do. I should get on my bike a bit more. Karen, were there any questions in the chat box for Becky?
Oh, on mute, sorry. Schoolboy error. Yeah, so Justina said that she's given up her car and she exercises for 45 minutes a day. And if you see Justina, because we know her and she's just so fit and healthy, you can just see like life force radiating from her every time you see her. So that's brilliant. I was interested in Devon saying that they did a survey at their work, and then I just wondered, Becky, if there are any surveys done out in the community to see if there's an increase in cycling, walking, bus usage, to find out if we need like, how are we finding out that we need more infrastructure or better infrastructure?
Yeah. We conduct, or we did pre-COVID, we haven't really done an awful lot since COVID, to be fair, but we used to do regular workplace travel planning surveys. So big employers such as IKEA, Amazon, Serpentine Green would normally annually, we'd like to do it, you know, every 6 months really, because obviously travel habits do change with the weather as well and the time of year, just to ask, you know, how they travel to work and back, or and you know what's stopping them, you know what their barriers are. So yeah, we have got a little bit of data from those sorts of exercises. In addition, with the recent school street schemes that have been implemented, there is actually live now a parent resident survey which is available online for parents and residents in which to complete. This is predominantly to ascertain if travel habits have changed because of the school street scheme, but also, you know, there is a bit of background information there as to what people's opinions and views are on walking and cycling. There is the NHT survey, which is an annual survey that goes out. I think it just goes out to a random percentage of the Peterborough population, and it asks various questions about highways predominantly, but there is some cycling kind of information in there about our cycle paths and things like that. And interestingly, Peterborough has always scored relatively highly at the NHT survey for highways and for our cycling infrastructure. But again, that's something, you know, that we do look at the feedback and look to implement some other things. We're also currently undertaking what's called a local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. So this is a 10-year plan looking at key routes and origins and destinations where people are travelling to using various forms of data, looking at the existing infrastructure that's available for pedestrians and cyclists and how we need to upgrade that then in order to encourage more people to walk and cycle. So that's something that should be coming out, I would say, by the end of the year for public consultation. So, you know, I'll let you guys know when that's available, because any feedback on that is something we really, really want to take on board and take it forward. We don't want to build something somewhere where, you know, it's never going to get used or it's not wanted. So yeah, we take public opinion very seriously.
So Tim, thanks, Becky. Tim's asked, the match funding for sustainable infrastructure, is that something that's countrywide? Because everyone on the call might not be from Peterborough. And I was
Right.
when you were talking as well about the sort of the general schemes like the school scheme that you were just talking about and others, if they're the sort of thing that are happening nationally as well.
Okay, I don't know if other councils and local authorities offer match funding for sustainable travel infrastructure. I know we do in Peterborough and Cambridgeshire. You would have to speak with your local authority to see if that was something that is available. So that's my answer to that question. I really don't know. With regards to the school streets, yeah, this is something that happens nationally. I think there's been a surge in more school streets projects and low traffic neighbourhoods since the pandemic. They were initially introduced to allow for greater space for social distancing outside of the school gates, but obviously, but obviously there's been such a huge kind of uptake in them, and you know, a lot of support from parents, staff, residents, because it's dramatically changed the school run for a lot of schools. You know, it's so much nicer outside of the school gates where these schemes are in place. But there are lots and lots of schemes up and down the country. The school street schemes, low traffic neighbourhoods. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Lovely, thank you. And Tim also asked if you've had any experience of setting up car share schemes. That I think I know the answer to that, but I'll let you answer anyway.
We have had some limited experience setting up car share schemes. A few years back now, probably 4 or 5 years ago, we worked intensively with IKEA, the distribution centre, and we looked at priority parking spaces for car sharers. We used various different apps to match car sharers up with one another. It had limited success, I will say. I think those people that work together that could share a lift probably do it unofficially anyway. They kind of work it out amongst themselves. We do work with some workplaces where we've done like a postcode plotting exercise. So we'll obtain just the postcodes of the employees, plot them all on a map, pop it in the staff room and say, did you know that there's 6 people that live in this particular ward then that all potentially could car share? But I think it has limited success when we try and intervene.
It's a really difficult one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Places like Cross Keys Homes and the City College have all tried to implement this, and they've got special parking bays right at the front, like we're used to seeing mother and baby ones, but they're car sharing, but they're always empty because people are either doing it, like you say, unofficially, or even if they live in the same area, there's difficulties with starting and finishing at different times. And people are just, and I include myself in this, are selfish with their cars.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, oh, I haven't got time to be doing that. It's that thing again, isn't it?
It is as well. And I think that's some of the feedback that we got was, you know, I don't want to be waiting around in the morning if they're running late, or what if there was an emergency and I need to leave work early? How are they going to get home? So, yeah, I think it's more of an informal arrangement that we would promote and say, you know, perhaps if you travel, you know, quite a distance, perhaps you could consider car sharing. Is there anyone in your local area or at your workplace that lives close by, and would you consider this? But it's not something we necessarily push as a first option.
Yeah, and I think it's Alison had mentioned about working from home, and I just wondered, because like at PEX now we're only in the office 1 or 2 days a week, as opposed to we used to be in the office 5 days a week. So do you think that's made a big difference, people working from home more?
Huge. I think it's made a huge difference. I think we haven't really realised the benefits of it yet because the data isn't available. I would urge people to still continue to work from home. Obviously, there's no emissions if you're staying at home. But there are those days when you do go in the office. And I think because now we have more flexible ways of working, it's even more of an opportunity for those days when you do go in the office to try travelling in a different way, to try walking or cycling, because you're only going in that 1 day, 2 days a week. Hey, I'm gonna ride my bike that day. It doesn't matter if I'm 10 minutes late or early or whatever. So yeah.
Okay, lovely. Has anyone got any more questions for Becky? If anything pops in the chat, I'll let you know, Becky, but I know Nikki's got a poll that she'd like to do.
Yeah, so just to finish up, really, hopefully everything Becky was talking about has really inspired us all to be a bit more active with our travel. So we just wanted to see if everyone could make a pledge. And we've got a couple of ideas up there. But if you have another idea that you think maybe you want to implement in your day-to-day life, just let us know what they are. And maybe if you could just put it in the chat box, what you might pledge to do. It would be good to see what people are going to do. What have you pledged, Karen?
To try and cycle more, because I get my bike and I get it serviced and it's all ready to go, and then I leave it in the shed.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely the same. Mine will be the same.
And I think sometimes in terms of work, because we're only in the office 1 or 2 days, I definitely coincide those, because we're doing a lot of events and things at the moment, with grabbing boxes of light bulbs and banners and everything that I couldn't do, and I couldn't get to the event without a car. But like this week, Thursday is my day in the office, and I don't have any events at the weekend to give me that excuse, and all the stuff from the weekend, last weekend's all in Nikki's car, not mine, so I've got no excuse this week not to cycle in.
Yeah. So we'll hold you to that. Are there any other different pledges coming in?
It's interesting, Tim saying about doing less car journeys but better planning, and I think that's really important, because you know, if we haven't planned properly, it's just so easy to just do what you always do, isn't it? Grab your keys and jump in the car or whatever. So getting the kids to cycle more, and I guess that's really good for their confidence and things moving forward, using more sustainable transport as they grow up, and giving more lifts as well, which I think is really important. A good example of that, I think my daughter lives about 3 miles from school in the middle of nowhere, and it's got a 9-year-old, real like quite busy country roads though that are difficult to cycle on, and her car's broken down this week, and there's 2 mums that have offered to take my granddaughter to and from school because while she's getting her car sorted. But why weren't they doing that anyway? They said, oh, we drive right past your house, we'll take her. So yeah, get this car sharing for school would be good.
Yeah,
especially for village schools where people live quite a way away.
Yeah.
Alison says she'd like to look at electric bikes as it's uphill all the way home. I don't blame you. One of our colleagues lives in Kingscliff, and she's got an electric bike and has started coming into Peterborough on that, and she's really loving it. So yeah, some great pledges there.
Cool, amazing. Yeah, so I guess that is sort of the end of that, unless anyone else has any questions for Becky, or her contact details will be in the follow-up email if you wanted to email her anything. I'm sure she'll be fine with that.
Just quickly, just jump in a second. Becky, I'm from PECT as well, but we're running a On Your Bike campaign at the moment, and we put out a survey, and our Facebook comments have gone a bit mad on people commenting on infrastructure of cycling around Peterborough. So if you're interested in any of the kind of comments and survey results that we get from that, just let me know, or let Karen or Nikki know. We can send that over, because I think it might be quite interesting from your point of view too.
That would be fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, definitely be interested in seeing the results from that.
And I've just had a final question in from Katia. So unfortunately she has to take the plane to go home, but she says so I'm guessing home is overseas. Is the green flight actually green?
Katia, I have no idea, if I'm honest with you. That's something I will take away and look into.
You know the ones I mean, that like you can pay a little bit extra and they say that it's more environmentally friendly, but I'm just very, I'm not entirely sure how they would use that and if it's worth.
I think they offset their carbon emissions, don't they, with other initiatives?
Yeah.
Nikki, I listened to a really interesting podcast yesterday. It's on Radio 4. It's called Sliced Bread. So basically they look at a different thing each week to see if it is better than sliced bread. So it's a consumer podcast, and they talked about carbon offsetting and so on in that, and it was really interesting. It was they were looking at beer and whether its claims it was making were authentic and so on, but it really explained that, and it might help with that question. So I'll send you the link, Nikki, and you can perhaps put that in the talk in to send out. It's only like a 25-minute webinar, but podcast, but it was really interesting to hear.
Yeah, I can add that. That'd be useful.
There's something else I thought of as well, just quickly. Alison, you mentioned about potentially, or who was it in the chat, said about an e-bike? The colleague that Karen mentioned actually wrote a blog for PECT on the challenges that she faced and all her top tips. So I'll pop that in the chat as well, in case you fancy reading through that, and maybe Nikki could pop it in the guide too.
Yeah, we'll do.
So we are running 3 more talks this week. We've got one on fast fashion, one on food, and one on, I've forgotten, Nikki, can you help me? Energy, of course. So join us for those, spread the word about that, and we're going to be running all of them again next week in the evenings for people that can't make the daytime. So and we're also, as Nikki said at the beginning, offering one-to-one sessions across all the topics if and you'll have details in the email if you'd like to be able to book for one of those one-to-one sessions with a member of the PEC team. Thank you everybody for coming today. Thank you, Becky. It's a great presentation, lots of really useful information, and I look forward to working with you on the PEC travel plan as well.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Okay, I think that's it. I think with Teams we all have to leave. We don't end the meeting like we do with Zoom. So don't feel awkward about pressing the leave button.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Just go. See you, everyone.
So bye.
Bye. Nikki, I'm just going to stay on because I don't know how, so we can, oh, just PEC people now, good, because I don't know how to save all this stuff.
I think if you stop the recording, it then saves it in the chat, doesn't it?
Okay. Stop recording. Yes, I'm sure.